Hey guys, good afternoon. Today's October 15th, and since it's Sunday today, I thought maybe I'd do a couple of videos. But to start off, I thought it'd be best if I started with another tactics video to kind of warm myself up, get back into the chess mindset. Stayed up pretty late last night, just dicking around, playing some video games, so I'm not at my best today, but we'll just see how it goes. So let's just jump right in today, and we're going for 5 wins in a row. Looks like I've had some pretty decent spells lately, but if I remember correctly, when I was doing those tactics, I didn't spend a lot of time on some of them. This one I apparently spent like 2 minutes on, but yeah, so we'll just do our basic tactics training and kind of exercise the muscles. So I'm white in this position and my opponent's black. Let's start with the pawn count, and I hope you guys are enjoying the music. Yet again, I still am working on my royalty-free playlist here. It's not easy to find decent sounding things, and I added 3 random ones today that I just found, and I haven't really listened to them. This one's a little bit epic, and I'm not exactly sure how the licensing works on this, so in the post-production you might not even be hearing anything right now. But anyway, let's actually turn this down a little, because it's a little loud for me. So I'm just going to turn it down on my end, and hopefully it won't be too loud on your end. Again, still a learning process, so I guess that's just how it is. But yeah, let's start off with the pawns. My opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns on his side, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns on my side. So he's up 2 pawns. And structure-wise, he has a double pawn here, so I don't know if that's great or bad, but it's something that he has. He has a relatively strong structure, looking at it this way or this way, on his king side, so that could potentially be a problem for me if this was a real game in the late game, especially since the only 2 pawns I have to kind of chip away at this would be my e-pawn and my f-pawn. My e-pawn maybe being able to damage one of his f-pawns, but since he has double pawns, that's not really a worry for him. And even if my f-pawn were to be able to fight off this g-pawn, in the end his h-pawn would have to be dealt with in another way. So yeah, pretty strong pawn structure for my opponent here. On the E and F file, I'm doing okay with my own little pawn duo here, my pair of pawns, but I don't think this is going to really play into the immediate tactics at this point. And they're so far back at home, that's one of the reasons why they won't be of much help right now. Alright, looking further at the queen's side, he has a pawn duo here that's in a pretty good spot, and after a move I'll have a pair of pawns on my AB file as well, and that's pretty much even. I'm further up, so that's good, but with the situation we have, with the placement of the pawns right now, I could potentially get a pass pawn on the A rank, but we'll have to see what happens. It would be most beneficial for him, really, to just keep his pawns as is, and let me try to make the break in, which in the end would fail, because if my A pawn were to move to the 5th rank, he would take with his B6, B6 to A5, and then I would just have to move up. He could then pass on the A file, while if my pawn from b5 went to b6, well, obviously his pawn on a7 could just go take on b6, and I would be pawnless. So in this situation, it's almost like a first person to move his pawn loses kind of situation. So I guess for now we will just have to leave those pawns there. Moving on to major pieces. I have my queen on the H file right now, and this is kind of the area that she controls. I'm guessing she'll have something to do with this tactic at some point, but the immediate threat I see is from his bishop right there. So that could potentially be bad news. This is a discovered attack. He just moved his knight from f6 to d5, so that's a problem. And you know what? I just had a silly idea, which I might implement after this particular tactic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the numbers for the coordinates on my board and force myself to actually figure out the coordinates with my own head instead of just looking at the sides to reactively get the numbers as quick as I can. But anyway, moving on for now. My queen is in a little bit of a discovered attack situation, so I'm gonna have to figure out something to do about that. If I do take here, the knight takes, so that's a no-go. I do see something like this into something like that, which would be checkmate, but would he allow such a silly thing? I don't think so. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Alright, moving on to his queen. She's on the other side of the board. She can't quite go into a checkmate situation just yet. So she's probably waiting for the knight to come in and help out at this point. So it's kind of a race to see who can kind of get into a checkmate faster, I guess. And these are the positions that she's kind of controlling. She's in a bit of a bind situation where there aren't a lot of places that she can go, but she is about to do something pretty awesome. And major pieces besides the queens, I have my rook here in one of the nice files, an almost open file, and I have my other rook here defending on my queen side, where he has both of his rooks, and that can, if given enough amount of time, he could, yeah, my opponent could potentially hurt me very badly with a couple of decent trades, you know. I'm thinking once he makes a battery, push in with one, push in with another, and after the second push, the king already has to move. So really, maybe leave the queen here, just make a double rook battery, and that would be enough to break this king's situation, or king's position. That would be a straight, legitimate checkmate, so that would be bad. But yeah, so for at least one part of the battery, I have a rook, and that buys me at least two turns before he can actually implement his battery, so that's good. But we're in a pretty dangerous situation. Another beautiful move I see for him is something like that. That would be great, because let's say, you know, he goes here, he takes, oops, that's not right. He goes here with his bishop, he takes, I have to take with my rook, then he can just come in here. If my rook decides to come down, then my queen would come down, and that would be checkmate. So this is a very precarious race for a checkmate kind of situation, I'm thinking, unless I can disturb these pieces in some wonderful way. Okay, so we've looked at our rooks, we've looked at our queens, that's all the major pieces. Let's look at our minor pieces. I have a knight and a bishop. He also has a knight and a bishop. His bishop on, really trying hard not to look at these side coordinates, damn it. His bishop on, this is an e-file, the famous e-file, and this is his 7th rank, so his bishop on e7 is controlling this, and as we've talked about before, there's that very opportune attack on my queen there. So I think the bishop's in a very opportunistic place, and with the knight defending him for now, yeah, I could see the bishop controlling a lot of space, denying maybe even a pawn on A, which would be great because then we could have a pass pawn for B, the B file. Yeah, there's a lot of potential play for that bishop there. My bishop isn't in a bad place either. He's very far up the board in the, our most beloved center squares, and he's controlling a lot of space. And as you can tell, because of his control, black can't put any of his pieces on here right now, which is great. That's very excellent. So both of the bishops are doing quite good work. Positionally, I really like my bishop. Tactically, his bishop maybe is in a slightly more interesting square. A lot more things resounding over here. And looks like this bishop is hanging right now, so that's a danger that we have to consider in our line of thoughts. Knights-wise, my knight is playing defensively, but this defensive knight is in a precarious situation. The only thing he's really good for right now is just his body. He's not even defending the first rank square. For instance, if he was here, that would be much better, because from the E2 position, then if they tried to do any kind of battery, there would be another attacking piece there, which would be great. So yeah, I have a defensive knight who doesn't control a lot of the more important squares right now. And on his side, he has a knight that has just moved for a discovered attack. And now he's, just like my bishop, in the center of the board. And I would say this is almost a very good square. If it was just one square down, it could be very good, except for this pawn, which, my e-pawn actually. How do you get to a game where the e-pawn has only moved to e3? That's amazing. But yeah, if this e-pawn wasn't here, this knight would be so great on the d4 square. That would be very strong. Whereas on the fifth file right now, it's not bad, but it's not great, I think. So those are the minor pieces. So a couple of thoughts I've had while I was going through the routine of the major pieces is, I see a couple of potential checks that could get us somewhere good, right? We have one, not an immediate check. King can't move there, actually. King can only move there. Actually, king can't move there. So, yeah. One, maybe two, three, four. That would break me. But it's there's a lot of potential with that one. Another immediate one I see is this one here. Rook 1, right? And then let's say he goes and captures my rook after my rook captures the pawn on g6. F7 pawn goes on g6. So check, take. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see a very quick check after that. Maybe so. Rook takes on g6, check. Pawn f7 takes on g6. Queen comes to... Queen takes bishop on e7. But that's not a check. And there's that. So that's not good. That's not good. No, no, no. this is a hard one. This is hard. Another one I see, maybe let's look at this, potentially. Queen takes on h7. King takes ace h7. Rook to h1 check. King has to move back to g8. Rook moves h8. Check. King can't go here. King can't go there. I think that might be the answer. So queen moves from h4, h7 check. King is the only piece that can take. Oh, well, king doesn't have to take though, right? So let's say queen goes here. What happens if king goes there? Oh, he's fucked. Because then queen to h8, that's checkmate, yeah. Okay, so better to eat the queen, I guess, but then rook comes in h1, check on h7 for king. King can't go to g7 because of the bishop, can't go to h8 because of the bishop, and so from this position, the only square he can go to is g8. And then bishop goes from h1 to h8, putting king in check again. And actually, that's checkmate because king cannot go to h7 because of the rook, can't go to g7 because of the bishop, and can't go to f8 because of the rook again. Okay, so let's play that line. That's check. This is check again. Oh, I didn't see that bishop. That's silly of me, but that doesn't matter because that's checkmate. Very interesting puzzle. Well, I think it was pretty straightforward once I saw the line. It's probably one of the last lines I would have taken a look at because I'm not very comfortable still because of my inexperience of thinking about mating specifically without my queen. I see a queen and I think, yeah, I want to mate with that thing, often. It's a lot easier. But this worked out pretty cool. Alright, let's move on. Let's move on to the next one. That's our first win. This one may be a little bit easier. We're about to see. This looks like some kind of pawn promotion thing going on. So let's see. Let's start with the pawn count first. I'm black. Opponent's white. And pawn-wise, he has 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns, where I have 1, 2, 3 pawns. And I think his bishop has just taken one of my pawns. So a turn before we were 4 to 4. And structure-wise, his pair here is very far back and defensive, but because of the move he made now, it's too late. Now it's a passing pawn. And in fact, instead of the bishop taking this pawn, or maybe it was a minor piece, whatever the bishop took at this point, instead, the pawn should have taken that f-pawn. And that would have been fine, because even if the g-pawn takes the f-pawn, later, if white has an h-pawn and a g-pawn, the hg-pawn still can't pass through. If my g-pawn pushes up, then the f-pawn comes back in, creating the pair again. Oh, dicks. I did it again. Oh, that's fucked. But yeah, so as I was explaining, having kind of breaking up the pawn pair by one square against or one file isn't too bad, especially in the late game with no other pieces around, because that farther pair or that pawn on the farther file can always just come back in. Or in this situation, if this happens, you just take with the h-pawn and then you just let the other pass pawn go all the way through. But in this situation, you have the E and D file filled with pawns, so really once white takes, you'd want to push back over this way. And I think if my math is correct, right, G2 takes on H3 or F3. Let's say H7 to H5. Then you just end up in that kind of pawn stalemate, really, that you end up with 2 pawns to 2 pawns, instead of allowing this pawn to pass through, which is very dangerous. Okay, well, structure-wise, he has pairs, and this pair is pretty close to getting over to the other side, so that's pretty cool. He could do something like this as his next move, but then I would take immediately with my king. So that's before he can do that, he has to at least either move his bishop over here to the f6 square, or move his pawn up to the d6 square, and then do another move to push his other pawn up to the e7 square. I'm sorry, I just blacked out there for a second. Yeah, and then of course with this many pieces over on this side, I could potentially see like maybe a queen or maybe a king move. You know, king move, pawn move, and just slowly close down the space in my area until I'm in a checkmate position. I could definitely see something interesting like that happening as well. So this is kind of a race now. I'm either going to get crushed slowly and he's going to promote first, or I have to potentially take and then promote. I have 2 before I can promote. The question is which way I promote. So, oh, he took my bishop. That's how the game started. Alright. So, yeah, we don't have to look at major or minor pieces. He has a minor piece, and it's controlling everything because it's the only minor piece, and it's in the center. It's in a great position. It's his dark squared bishop. So let's just look at what we have to do with our pawns. Let's kind of calculate some lines here. Let's say I take. Let's say he tries to do some kind of quick tempo move. I take. He pushes. I would move into the white zone. That's pretty much dead. And then I guess he could move over here to take. So question, maybe it's better if I don't take and I go straight forward, because then there's no way anybody can get back in time to deal with the white queen or a white squared queen instead of a black squared queen. Because if I go here and then he just gets ready for that, then when I do this, it's going to be a pain, right? Yeah. So instead of taking, which seems like the more aggressive and beautiful move, I think going here is the best move. Alright, so let's do this. I don't know about any of the other countermeasures he can take, but I think this is the right move. Alright, that's cool. He's going to do that. I'm going to stay with this pawn. And now I have a queen. And yeah, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I was a bit hesitant with my king here all alone, but everything worked out. Next couple of moves, let's look on the analysis board. I would imagine go something like... Yeah, I mean, that is a move that he could do, but I don't know. Doesn't seem promising, right? But if that happens, that happens. Yeah. And now we're in a very good position. He has to go. And then there's another check. Oh, that doesn't help. Anyway, I can think of a couple of different ways of... I'd probably do this, actually. And then he's like, no! And then there would be much screaming and gnashing of teeth and rejoicing for Bao Kim. And that's how it'd go. Alright, well, since we're on the analysis board right now, let's go to the settings and let's see if we can get rid of these coordinates. We have tools, we have my rankings, we have the play button, we have the learn button. Why are there two links for study? I think one is my study and the other is general study. Yeah, that's how it is. I've never actually checked out the video libraries either. Coordinates here is just a coordinates practice thing. That's not what we want. Am I just missing their utilitarian settings button right now? Is that what's going on? Theming, notifications, challenges. Let's go under theming and see if they have it. Preferences. Here we go. That took me a second to find. Material difference. I should be counting that on my own. Board highlights, last move, and check. That's not bad. I don't really need it. Let's turn that off. Piece destination, valid moves, and pre-moves. Let's take that off too. We're just gonna make it really hard for Bao. Move list while playing. Don't show. And PGN piece notation. Yes, use the letters. Blindfold chess. Don't do that. And okay, so let's see what it looks like now. There's so many different things that we can change. This is cool. But we don't really need to do any of this right now. We can just go straight back to, how do you move pieces? Both click and drag. I don't know. I don't really remember how I move pieces. But yeah, I think that's enough settings for now. And there we go. Now let's try to play from here. Okay, another new tactics puzzle. And that was a nice win on my part, but let's be honest, kind of a loss because of a misclick. This would not be a problem if I allowed and disallowed moves. Whatchamacallit? Kid mode. That's what I meant. No, I'm just kidding. If I allowed for clicking to confirm moves. Input move was keyboard. That'd be sick. But yeah, I wonder why that isn't working for the training part. Oh well. Well, it just means I just have to be more careful with my moveset is all. Alright, so we're just gonna go on ahead. This looks like kind of the beginning of the game. Not much development on either side. Very weird development on both sides. This isn't what I'm very used to. We'll start with my opponent's pawns. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That's all 8 of his pawns. And on my side I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I have 5 pawns. I've lost 3 pawns in this game. That's great. And he has further development. And he has center control. Albeit he has a double pawns on the, what is it? A, B, C, D file. You see how much longer it takes me because I don't know the coordinates? This is much more helpful now. I think this is great in forcing me to learn how to actually just read the coordinates quicker through repetition over time without looking reactively at the sides of the board. I mean, all of the boards I have in real life also have the letters, but you know, this is cooler. This is much cooler. Developing a skill. Fuck yeah. Okay, so pawn structure wise, he has double pawns on the D rank. He has pawn shields or just starting pawns all on his second rank. And for me, I don't have any other pawns than these pawns here. This is, you know, same as his thing. And there could be some potentials of movement at some point, but not right now. Not in this tactics game. And even harsher is the fact that these 2 pawns here are not connected in the center by their friendly B pawn, and they're separated on the A and C files. So that's pretty shit on my pawns, and gotta make sure to only use right click Only right click and then left click to cancel. Oh god, dear god. Yeah, I gotta stop doing shit like that. Okay. Moving on, let's look at our major pieces. Both of us have the queens. His queen is slightly further developed than mine, and it's looking at chomping right down on this knight. Thank goodness for this bishop. Yum 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 yum. I mean, he has some pretty decent control, kind of on the edge of the board. But I'm guessing maybe one of his future moves will be something like this. That'd be good. But seeing as how the king is, my king is actually castled on the queen's side, or the king's side, I guess. Maybe it's good to have the queen here. Maybe he's slowly thinking of, doing something like this. But then the question will be, why is this knight all the way over on the right side? I don't know. Maybe, kind of in a more strategical, thematic sense, maybe even if you're pushing hard on one side, the knight's potential to jump around and do tricky moves makes it a good kind of, thematic prototype of an assassin character, going in, reaching out, taking a piece here, jumping over there, etc., etc. That's an interesting thought to consider maybe in the future when I get good enough to think about things like that. Okay, so we've looked at the queen. Let's look at my queen. Yeah, that's my queen. Okay, good. My queen doesn't have a lot of places to go right now. It's doing a bit of defensive work, but really in this early game, I would really hope for it to be kind of... I would have really hoped to be developing more pieces, getting more control on the board instead of playing so defensively right now. This is early game like this. You really don't want to be so claustrophobic. Or I mean, not claustrophobic, but what would the claustrophilo? Would that be the word? Loving tiny spaces like this. That's not good. And of course, even if the queen wants to move to the what is this? The D6 square? Not possible because of the double attack here. It's just all around just bad placement for my pieces right now, it seems like. And let's look at the rooks. His rooks aren't developed. Okay, and my rooks. Well, one is at least in the center on an open file looking at the king. So that is something. We can do a discovered attack of some sort here. So that's pretty cool. Thank God for that, at least. My other rook is also on a half open file because at some point I decided that it was a smart move to move a b pawn all the way up to b5, and then the knight just took it. Maybe this was all a secret plan to set up this tactics board. But yeah, my rooks have a bit more potential than his rooks do. So there's that. There's at least that. Going into minor pieces, let's see. My knight is in an okay place. I like this. It's not too far off the side here. He's only missing 2 other potential places of movement. And although he's not controlling or aggressively attacking a lot of the squares on white's side, he has at least 1 square of control on the center squares, and this square is pretty valuable too to get some maneuverability for his dark square bishop. So this is good. I like this knight. At least that knight exists, and I think looking at a mirror diagram, his knight is doing exactly the same thing. My knight just happens to be just very mirror image of each other. So that's very cool. Very cool positions for the knights, and I think that's not a bad position at all, especially when you think about next potential places that may open up a knight on the what is this, the D6 or D7 rank? No, D6 rank. I mean, that is exactly where you want to be. Controlling center squares, controlling that sweet spot, attacking in so many beautiful places. That's, same for this knight. These are definitely the squares that you want to be controlling. Anyway, okay, so the knights are in pretty good positions. They're both defended well by the bishops that are playing far, no, not that pawn, far from the back. That's very excellent. And then bishop-wise, we have our defensive bishop defending the knights, but we also, whoa, I thought I was missing another bishop. So yeah, we have another couple of bishops that are out here that have nice potentials of attack, especially my bishop here, right? There's a open attack here and then another attack there. That's beautiful. That's the kind of stuff you want to do. And I mean, this bishop has a lot of potential right now just because of this discovered attack on this file. I do this, take the queen. That's a trade I'll take any day, right? On the other hand, his bishop, if he gets in, sadly doesn't have a direct defender for his bishop there, but if he could secure a place here, he could do a nice pin onto this bishop for my queen and then maybe get a queen trade at some point. But right now, potential movement squares, I mean, this seems like a pretty good square, right? Whoops, ignore that. Or really just pointing forward more towards this way. But like, get him out here, get him in play, get the rooks out. That would be the kind of thing I would be thinking for white. And another play I would think for white is something like this. Be like, hell yeah, bring in your stuff. I'll take it. I'll take all of it. And that would be a one-up trade, so that'd be good. That'd be great. Of course, if he does that, he loses the defender on the knight. But right now, as we can see, there's nobody attacking the knight, so it's not really a problem. Alright, now that we've looked at our minor pieces finally, let's start looking at the actual puzzle. So first one I want to look at, besides the queen trade, is just the direct. What is that? Is that a checkmate? No. I only control the file, don't control the rank. My bishop only controls this diagonal here. Let's figure out what diagonal that is. This is the A file. This is the 5th row, or the 5th rank. So this is the A5 to the E1 diagonal. That's what the diagonal is. So that's not really great. He can move this way. And then what? Well, and then rook just straight up right there. What can he do at that point? That's checkmate, right? Isn't it checkmate? Move here. Check. King has to move. Rook over to E1. Check. Oh, I'm sorry. King moves to D1. Rook comes to E1. Check. And I'm trying to see if it's mate. There's nothing he can do at this point to discourage the rook. So I think that's it. That's gold. Yeah, looks like it. Pretty simple puzzle. Check. And then checkmate. There we go. Alright, good stuff. Good stuff. And sadly, because of my flub in my last puzzle, we don't have a consecutive 3 wins. But let's just keep going on. I did promise in my description for this video that it was going to be a little bit longer. I don't want to be a liar, man. So let's just keep on playing and see where we get to. Okay. So alright. Let's look at the pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on my opponent's side, and I have 1, 2, 3 on my side. It's not good. Somehow we've ended up in an incredibly weird game. This looks like some kind of Dali painting, man. This looks like a rendition of an artist's idea of what chess looks like. This is pretty awesome. Okay, well, pawn structure wise, I have 3 pawns. I'm down 3 pawns, so there's not much to say besides he actually has some kind of structure to talk about, and he's gonna push forward. Unless I find a checkmate or some really good trades, like 6 to 9 points of material trades, this is not gonna This is gonna be pretty hard. Yeah. Anyway, pawn structure wise, there's not much to say about my pawn structure. He's just gonna overwhelm me. He has 2 passed pawns already, and this pawn, with the help of his A pawn, his B pawn, can potentially get promoted as well. So that's pretty awesome. And he has a pawn pair here that's doing a nice little mini pawn shield for the king over on the H1 square, so that's good for him. Let's look at some other things. Pawns are pretty boring right now on this open field, so let's go directly to our major pieces. First thing I see is this rook's fucked. I mean, even if he does that, this still has to happen before this can get out. So we're talking about 3 moves, 3 turns to activate the rook. So yeah, that rook isn't a problem for any of us. Let's not worry about that. This queen somehow has ended up all the way on our side. Thank God to this bishop. But the queen has pretty decent potentials of play. It's got a very long diagonal, right? That's the A8 H1 diagonal. That's one of the 2 most longest diagonals in the game. Haha. And somehow we have allowed him to take our rook instead of taking our bishop. But I think, as I've been looking at this board, that's going to be how we win the game. So, good, I guess? I don't know. If somebody intentionally loses a rook so that they can checkmate an opponent, like, that's okay, more power to you. That's awesome, but that's not going to happen a lot of times. So we've looked at the major pieces, I guess. Let's look at my major queen. Let's look at my queen. She's got some power. I like where she's at. She's defending this B8 square. That's great. She's really on the other side of the board. She's kind of in his 3rd rank, my opponent's 3rd rank, which is actually the board's 3rd rank. So rank 3, yay. And yeah, this diagonal here, from here to here. What is that diagonal? I don't like having to look at coordinates. Well, this is H, this is 4, this is E, and this is 1. So the H4 to the E1 diagonal, it stops certain movements from happening. So that's good. I like this. It's actually keeping this bishop trapped in a way. So that's cool. That is cool. Nice. So I like where my queen is. I think his queen could be probably a little more effective here in the center, just being a show off. That would be awesome, right? That would be the exemplary square you'd want your queen to be. But yeah, not bad, not bad. Okay, moving on to our minor pieces. This is his diagonal. That's all he has, and as we've talked about, our queen is cutting off a bit of that path on that diagonal, so that's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. His knight needs to be activated, but it isn't. It's stuck, and I don't really see it becoming a nuisance for me until, I mean, yeah, if I was in this game, I would not worry about the knights as much. Although he does have 2 knights. So he has 3 minor pieces to my 2. So that's pretty shit. I would be pretty sad about that. Thankfully, I have my bishop pair on an open board. So in some ways, I'd be pretty happy. Not that I'm very good at playing my bishop pairs. It's definitely something that I have to work on. And if I look at my bishop right now, this bishop is, yeah, just similar to his bishop, is kind of relegated to my first 3 ranks, the 8, 7, and 6th rank. However, the benefit of my bishop's potential movement place is this. And that, ooh, what the hell is that? It's a tree, guys. Anyway, oh god, make it go away. The potential I see is a bishop move to my d6 square and taking control of that second rank h square, so the h2 square. I think I see the tactic for this problem, and it has to do with using his own pawn structure to close off any escape routes. And thankfully, there's nobody attacking the square, so I think my line of reasoning works, and I'll share it with you now. I think it's pretty obvious. Move the queen over to e1 check. Only place that the king can go at this point would be to this h2 square, at which point I would check again with my dark squared bishop on from d6, and because of this diagonal attack, the king cannot go further on the diagonal to escape, and because all of his first rank is taken by my queen, he would be stuck, and that would be checkmate. Is that correct? Let's see. Is there any way that this can be dissuaded? No, I don't see it. This is a force move. Ah, okay. That will happen. The computer likes to do that. Sacrifice to succeed. That would be a beautiful move only if the knight was here. That would be the only way, but the knight is one turn back. So even though he'll move his bishop, his dark squared bishop, to f4 to try and block my dark squared bishop on d6, it's not going to matter because he has no defender, and once I take his bishop on f4, then it's going to be checkmate once more. So this, actually, my original plan of this was not checkmate. There was a blocker, but after that it is checkmate. Okay. And in this situation, if that knight hadn't been greedy and just taken my rook, I'm guessing is what happened, then that wouldn't have been possible. Anyway, let's get this shit on the road. So there's the check, there's the second check, there's the bishop, and there's checkmate. Oh my god. Oh, well, I'm an idiot. I forgot that pawn's move. So there's that. God damn it. If you guys are watching this, you guys must think I'm a real maroon. What a maroon. But that's not too bad. Let's just play the tactic from here. Okay. There are two options right now. We have queen goes here, at which point the king can only be forced here, and then queen can go there for checkmate. Let's look at the other potential. Bishop goes here. King can go here. King can go here. King can't go anywhere on the first line. First rank, I mean. Just kidding. So if bishop check, then king over here, and then there, and then that looks almost checkmatey. That's another move before I can checkmate him. So why don't we just go with the queen move and get the faster checkmate. There we go. And that's checkmate. Oh, man. That's a lesson to be learned. Lesson number 1. Pawns can move, or something like that. Thankfully, he was grasping for straws at that point, so we got it, but man, that was silly. I can't believe that's too silly. Alright, puzzle solved in 300 seconds. That's pretty good. That's a 5-minute puzzle. That's not too bad. I'm not very quick anyway, so that's how it goes. Let's move on to the next one. Although I think I'm getting pretty thirsty. So I might take a short break and get some water, and I'll just leave you guys with this repetitive, royalty-free study music. So I'll be back in like 30 seconds. Alright, I'm back and I have a cup of water and we are up 2 games. Let's see if I have enough stamina to get to 5 games. That would be super sick. That would be sick as dicks. And I feel like I'm warming up, so this is awesome. Let's continue on. That was fun. The problem with me rating puzzles is like I don't feel like I'm highly rated enough to know what's a good puzzle and what's not a good puzzle. All I know is can I logically solve it or not. So I feel bad about rating, actually. Maybe I should stop rating puzzles. I rarely do it anyway. Alright, so this is an interesting position. Let's see what we have going on here. First, the pawns. I have 1, 2, 3. Ooh, misclick. 3 pawns, 1 pawn on his 3rd rank, getting close to his shit. And why have all these puzzles been from me on the black side? What's going on? Anyway, this pawn is defended for now, but ooh, I like that. I didn't see that the rook was defending him for a second there, but that's good. So this pawn has a way of transitioning slowly up to the space here. And that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. These 2 pawns aren't doing much. He has a double pawn on his e-file. That's not going to be doing very much anyway, so I don't worry too much about that. Even if I move my bishop here, do this, there's no defense there. I can take, and I will have the square ready for my pawn on the h-file to get promoted. Awesome. Very neat. I have more pawns. I like where my pawns are. I'm feeling pretty good. Okay, next up would be the major pieces, and all I see right now on the board are 2 rooks. And my rook is in a very nice place. Very nice place. And I can see him doing some kind of magical things. Maybe a potential, like, hey, I gotcha kind of thing. A check there. But honestly, I'm just more focused on this pawn promotion, really. So there's that. And I guess the other benefit that I haven't talked about is the fact that because of my rook on his 2nd rank and his king on his 1st, king is going to be continually stuck on his 1st rank, which is awesome. Great for checking potential. Very good. Okay. And his rook, on the other hand, has the backing of some minor pieces. But thanks to this pawn here and this dark squared bishop on my f-file, on my f7 or f8 square to be precise, even if the rook wanted to do some kind of move to pressure my king, the trades don't work out. Obviously, this is the first one. No, that's not going to work. If he tries to go over here, no, that's not going to work. If he goes over here, pawn takes, bishop takes, king takes. And so we, again, end up in a winning position. So I don't... So, just kidding. This is a discovered check. That's a great move. So I see that, let's say that happens, right? I can't move anywhere on this file here, this D file, so I'd have to, oh my goodness, I can't even move back here because of his bishop on B6. That's B6, right? 8, 7, 6, 5. Oh, B5. Right, okay. His light squared bishop on B5, pointing at this a4 to the e8 diagonal. Yeah, because of this bishop, I wouldn't be able to go on to e8. I wouldn't be able to go to d8. I would have to move to something like these two squares on the c file, the c8 and the c7 square. So let's say check, I move here. Actually, maybe that isn't too bad for me, because I move out of the discovered attack, and the only good move I see for him is to come back here, and then I go back there. I mean, probably shouldn't take a draw. If he moves back here, what if I move over here? King over there. What's he gonna do? He can't go here, then I'll take his rook. He could go there. That's not bad. It's not bad. Maybe going here might lead me into further... Oh. No, if he moves over here, though. Yeah. Right. Yeah, if he moves his rook all the way... Why would he move his rook over there? He doesn't have to move his rook over there. He can just move his rook to b6, right? Yeah. Then I just come back, I guess. This is just a continuous moving of pieces that would never end. I'm thankful it's not his turn. It would just be my king getting checked over and over again as I just moved back and forth. I don't see any really good moves for me. Anyway, thankfully it's not his turn, so we don't have to worry about that. That is a beautiful move, though. Discovered attack. I mean, potentially, what would be really good is just for him to take... Yeah, that would be the better attack. Just, boom, take. Take one of my bishops. King is forced to move. King is forced to move, again, as we said before. Oh, I guess he could move on to the d square now. But then we're talking about some trades here, and then the king would be in a pickle, I think. I don't know. Haven't really worked that out. But it's not his turn, so let's just look at our potentials. While we were playing around with that potential rook move, I think we've got a pretty clear coverage of what kind of power his... That's not a real place that the bishop can go. We've looked at the power that his bishops hold on this board right now. It's very good. This is very aggressive bishop, double bishop play that's going to keep my king dangerous, in a very dangerous situation. So wonderful for him, shitty for me. And then my bishop is just, as we've discussed previously, he's defending this pawn right now, and for a future move I could see something like this. So now that we have... Oh, I forgot about my other bishop. He's useless. That's it. Because of this pawn, my bishop is stuck, and if this pawn wasn't here, yes, we would be able to get out of this kind of forever purgatory mating situation that we were looking at. But because of this pawn, because of how the board is, my bishop on my f8 square, he's not going to be doing anything for this tactical puzzle. So let's just move on. Okay. So first thing I see, obviously, is this move. Pawn to h2 puts the king in check. King can move here. But if the king does move to h1, problem is bishop to, what is that, d5? Bishop to d5, check, and king can't take pawn. King can't go onto the diagonal on g2, and the king would not be able to go back onto his square on g1 because of the pawn on h2 staring right down that barrel there. So that's a no-go. So if pawn moves to if pawn does check on brain fart, if pawn moves to h2 and checks on g1, then king will have to move over onto the f1 square. There we go. The words, they come back. But if the king does that, that's also checkmate, because then the pawn will just move up to h1, and that's both ranks cut off, checkmate, the most standard checkmate of all time. So let's do that. All right, very easy. All right, we do this variation here. Okay, I don't really care, and that's checkmate. So again, I missed the potential for the pawn moving up to block me. Thankfully, even if it blocks me, there wasn't a lot to be done afterwards. So this is the second time where a pawn block has gone beyond my recognition, and I really have to get better at recognizing that kind of potential pawn block from happening. So alright, that's just 300 seconds again. I almost feel like that can't be true. I think 300 seconds is just the max that it will allow. In reality, it feels sorry for me. In reality, I think it has been more than 300 seconds or 5 minutes. So that's sad. Whatever. This is for the benefit of training for myself, as well as just video recording. So I don't really worry about how quickly it happens. Interestingly enough, this other puzzle that I messed up on 82 seconds only because I fucked up the first time. Alright, let's look at this puzzle here. We're 3 in a row. We're going for 4. He has 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 6 pawns. Decent structure. Still pretty basic. Still starting. They haven't really fully developed into the mature pawns that they want to be. And on my side, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns. So 1 pawn less. And I have a double pawn. And I have a lonely pawn island. A widow pawn. I forget what those lonely pawns are called. A single pawn. I don't know. But yeah, he's on the H file by himself. He's not going to last long if it becomes a pawn on pawn battle. And this double pawn on the outside there, I don't know. I think that actually helps. 3 on 3s, I think I watched a video by Yasar Sarawan where he kind of showed what can be done with if all 3 pawns are on the same line, or I'm on the same rank with 1 space between them. There's a potential of 1 pawn structure being able to push through the other pawn structure, or at least having 1 pawn make it through as a pass pawn. Since I have a double pawn here, I could also push through and get rid of one of his other pawns before we get into that kind of pawn versus pawn game at the end. And of course 3 versus 2, if played correctly, the 3 pawns should win every time, right? Yeah. So there's that, but my pawns are still mostly on my second rank, and so I don't have a lot of hopes for some kind of pawn thing going on in this tactic scenario. Let's look at some major pieces. I've got a nice control of my first rank. I'm sorry. Apologies. And then I have a battery going onto his squares here, and that pawn is only defended by the king and the rook. So there's a lot of potential interesting things going on. Sadly, as soon as I do something like this, however, which isn't a forced move of any kind that I can see, the first problem would be the fact that then it would open a discovered attack for this rook to take my queen. So that's no good. That's no good. That's something we'll have to take care of. Second, yeah, so that's my rook battery going on. Let's see how his rooks are doing. His rooks have a potential of putting me in check at this point, but without his other rook in the game on the same file just yet, this is not a good place to be. Or I mean, this is not very favorable for him. Another instant thing I see, of course, is this trade. Right? But that's not going to happen. And I don't think... Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even see the knight there. So, yeah, that wouldn't work out anyway. And this... Oh! No! Alright, guys. That demotivated me a lot. And I don't think... Oh, no. Shit. Well, there goes my idea for 5 in a row. Dicks. Anyway, this rook right now isn't gonna be too much of a danger. I do like how his queen is defending it, however. And his queen, interestingly enough, I don't feel like is in a very dangerous position right now. Maybe once we introduce the knight, his minor piece, into this little game here, we'll see some potential. My queen, on the other hand, could do a direct check similar to his, but I would be losing a piece immediately thereafter. But I see some checking potentials coming out. I see some lines potentially there. Motherfucking left click. Anyway, okay. So maybe the queens have some tactical lines on both sides that they could potentially do. But let's move on to the minor pieces first before we look at lines. His knight is in a interesting space, doing a bit of defense, not far enough down, like say here, to do too much offense. But I feel like this is a safe place to be. In reality, I think if his knight was won over, this would be a good place to be. He wouldn't be defending anymore, but he would... Well, he wouldn't be defending the rook anymore. He wouldn't be defending his aggressive pieces. However, the bonus would be that he would be defending his king. So the question would be, do you want to use your knight aggressively, or do you want to use it to help against this storm of major pieces in front of your king? And right now, I'd say let's start with defense, maybe move up further and think of offense later. Interestingly enough, maybe if the knight had been where the rook is, that would be a pretty cool square as well. But yeah, so that's kind of where his knight is, defending the rook. So trading rooks isn't the right way to go, I don't think. Especially since after he trades, he has potential to take again. So, yeah. Very, very cool. Alright. My bishop is here on the side, kind of blocked by my queen here. And just kind of looking at this diagonal. Which diagonal is it, you ask? Well, it is the H5, right? 8765. Yeah, the H5 D1 diagonal. And is it a strong diagonal? No, not really. I see something like this potentially coming in later in the game, but with this rook here, I don't know. He's got it covered, so that might not come into play, but we'll see. We'll see. Alright, so let's start looking at some potential lines of what's going to happen. First line I see is something like this, right? Queen to G3. Pawn on F2 takes G3. Knight on the F file, takes the knight on the F file, all the way to F1. At that point, check. King has to move onto his second rank here. Let's start with him moving his king in check to the F2, right? No, the G2 square. If so, I'm thinking of moving my king, or I mean my other rook, from F1 all the way to, or not F1, F8 all the way to F2. And then the king would have no place to go. And I don't see the rook getting in the way anywhere. Yeah. I mean, whichever second rank square he goes, I could still do the same thing. That kind of seems like the answer, doesn't it? I think I've read that correctly. So let's do that. Check. 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 And that's it. Well, I won another one. Sadly, I broke my streak, and I mean, I wish I could count it, but it's just, you know, if I did count all the flubs, I would be 6 in a row now, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I've really fucked this one up, that's for sure. Anyway, I think I'll stop here for now. The moral victory is that I know in a way that I have won 5 tactics in a row. So yay! But when we get into the technicalities, the best kind of technicalities, I guess. It's, yeah, I flubbed it. But hope you guys enjoyed the tactics training. And I'm going to take a break now for a little bit because I'm an old man and my back's starting to hurt. So I'm going to stretch my back, do a little exercise. And then maybe later today I'll do another standard game video. So I'll see you guys later.